They say first impressions matter. But what if yours involved public humiliation, a torn skirt, and the man who just ruined your life becoming your new boss? When Adrian Cole's bike collided with Lena Brooks on that rain-soaked morning, he didn't just tear her only professional skirt. He shredded any chance of a normal working relationship. 20 minutes later, she'd discovered the stranger she'd cursed at in front of a crowd was now the billionaire CEO controlling her career. Some stories start with a meet-cute. Theirs started with fury, embarrassment, and a promise of disaster. Stay until the end. Like and comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The alarm didn't go off. That's how Lena's morning started, in absolute chaos, her phone dead on the nightstand, sunlight already cutting harsh angles through her apartment's broken blinds. She jolted upright, heart slamming, and checked the ancient digital clock across the room. 8:47 a.m. No, 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 no. The executive board meeting started at 9. Mr. Brennan had specifically told her, warned her, really, with that disappointed look he reserved for employees already circling the drain, that being late again would mean serious consequences. Translation, she'd be fired. Lena launched herself out of bed, feet hitting the cold floor, already mentally calculating. Shower, no time. Breakfast, absolutely not. The subway would take 23 minutes if she ran and caught the express. That left her exactly 10 minutes to get dressed and out the door. She grabbed the skirt from yesterday, her only professional one, a black pencil skirt she'd bought at a thrift store 3 years ago. It was worn thin at the seams, but it was all she had that didn't scream, struggling to survive in a city that costs too much. The white blouse came next, slightly wrinkled. No time to iron, she'd just have to own it. Coffee would have been nice. Food would have been smart. But Lena had neither time nor money for either, so she settled for brushing her teeth with one hand while pulling on her shoes with the other, a skill she'd perfected over years of barely keeping her head above water. By 8:52, she was out the door. The October morning hit her like a slap, cold, sharp, unforgiving. The kind of cold that reminded you winter was coming and your coat had a broken zipper you couldn't afford to fix. Lena ignored it, ignored everything except the pounding of her feet on pavement as she ran toward the subway entrance 3 blocks away. Please don't be late. Please don't be late. Her life had become a series of these desperate prayers to no one in particular. Please let the check clear. Please let the landlord accept late rent again. Please let this job last just a little longer. 30 years old and still running, still scrambling, still one bad day away from losing everything. The subway entrance loomed ahead. Lena could see other commuters filtering down the steps, unhurried, normal, their lives probably not hanging by a thread. She pushed harder, lungs burning, her worn flat slapping against concrete. The bike came out of nowhere. 1 second, she was focused on the subway entrance. The next, there was a blur of motion, a sharp yell, and suddenly she was spinning, off balance, her bag flying from her shoulder as something caught her skirt with a horrible tearing sound. Lena crashed into a lamppost, barely catching herself, and looked down in horror. Her skirt, her only professional skirt, was torn from hip to hem, the entire side seam ripped open, exposing her pale thigh, and the embarrassing cotton underwear she'd thrown on in her rush. "Are you serious right now?" She looked up, fury replacing shock. The cyclist had stopped, one foot still on his bike pedal, breathing hard. Expensive bike, expensive helmet, expensive everything, from the designer athletic wear to the watch on his wrist that probably cost more than Lena's entire year of rent. He pulled off his helmet, and she got her first real look at him. Tall. Dark hair pushed back from his forehead, slightly damp with sweat. Sharp jawline. Eyes the color of expensive whiskey. Brown with flecks of gold, currently wide with what might have been concern, but looked more like annoyance at being delayed. "I'm so sorry. I didn't see you." "You didn't see me?" Lena's voice came out louder than intended, cracking with stress and exhaustion, and the weight of everything wrong with her life. "I was running in a straight line. How could you possibly not see me?" A few pedestrians had stopped, phones out, because of course they had. Because this morning couldn't just be a private disaster. It had to be a public one too. The man's expression shifted, something hardening in those expensive eyes. "Look, I said I was sorry. I'll pay for the damage." "Pay for the damage?" Lena laughed, a bitter sound. "Do you have any idea?" She stopped herself, feeling the sting of tears she absolutely would not shed in front of this stranger. I have a meeting in... She checked her phone. 6 minutes. I'm about to lose my job and you just destroyed the only professional clothes I own. She hated how her voice shook, hated the tremor in her hands as she tried uselessly to hold the torn fabric together. Hated that this man, this clearly wealthy, clearly careless man, was looking at her like she was the problem. I'll have my assistant send you money for a new skirt, he said, his tone clipped now, professional. Like this was just a transaction, a minor inconvenience in his obviously important morning. Give me your information. I don't want your money. The words came out sharp, defensive. Pride was a luxury Lena couldn't afford, but sometimes it was all she had. I want you to watch where you're going. I want you to understand that not everyone can just buy their way out of consequences. His jaw tightened. I'm trying to help. You're trying to make yourself feel better. Lena adjusted her bag, still clutching her ruined skirt. There's a difference. For a moment, they just stared at each other. This stranger on his expensive bike and Lena with her broken life exposed for everyone to see. She waited for him to argue, to pull out cash like that would fix everything, to prove every assumption she'd just made about him. Instead, he said quietly, You're right. I'm sorry. It caught her off guard, that apology. It sounded almost genuine. But Lena didn't have time to figure out if it was. The subway, her job, her entire precarious existence, all of it was slipping away with every second she stood here. I have to go, she muttered, and pushed past him, holding her skirt closed as she ran for the subway entrance, ignoring the stares, ignoring the whispers, ignoring the way her chest felt like it might crack open from the pressure of holding everything in. The express train was pulling up as she hit the platform. Lena squeezed through the closing doors, pressed herself into a corner, and finally let herself breathe. 8:58 a.m. She wasn't going to make it. Adrian Cole stood on the sidewalk, his bike forgotten, watching the woman disappear into the subway. His phone buzzed. Marcus, his assistant. Where are you? Meeting starts in 5. He should move, should get back on his bike and finish the ride to the office where a boardroom full of executives was waiting to officially introduce him as CEO. Where his entire future, the culmination of 15 years of strategic planning and calculated risks, was about to unfold exactly as he'd designed it. But he couldn't stop seeing her face, the fury in her eyes, yes, but also the fear underneath it, the way her hands had shaken, the worn edges of her shoes, the slight fraying of her blouse cuff. I'm about to lose my job, and you just destroyed the only professional clothes I own. Adrian had built his fortune on reading people, on seeing what they didn't say. And that woman, whoever she was, had been barely holding on even before he'd literally torn her morning apart. Stupid, he muttered to himself, shoving his helmet back on. He'd been cycling the same route for 3 years, usually early enough to avoid the morning rush. But today he'd been running late because Emma had woken up crying from a nightmare, and Adrian had stayed with her until she'd fallen back asleep, which meant his entire schedule had shifted, which meant he'd been rushing, distracted, not paying attention. Not everyone can just buy their way out of consequences. She'd said it like an accusation, and maybe it was. Maybe she'd seen exactly what Adrian usually worked hard to hide, that he had built walls of money and power so high that normal problems, broken things, angry people, messes he'd made, rarely touched him anymore. He got back on his bike and rode toward the office, faster now, his mind already compartmentalizing. The woman would be fine. He'd have Marcus track her down somehow, send appropriate compensation. Problem solved, conscience cleared. That's what he told himself anyway. By the time Adrian walked into Cole Industries 15 minutes later, he'd almost convinced himself it was true. Lena made it to the office at 9:11 a.m. The boardroom doors were closed. Through the glass panel, she could see Mr. Brennan at the head of the table, mid-presentation, his expression serious as he gestured to something on the screen behind him. The new CEO introduction. The meeting she was supposed to be taking notes for. Lena pressed her forehead against the cool wall beside the door, fighting the urge to either scream or cry, or both. Her skirt was still torn. She'd tried tying her cardigan around her waist on the subway, but it just made her look ridiculous, unprofessional, exactly the kind of person who couldn't handle the demands of working at a major corporation. Ms. Brooks? She turned. Margaret from HR stood 5 feet away, arms crossed, face carefully neutral. "I need you to come with me, please." This was it then. The end she'd been running from all morning, catching up with her anyway. Lena followed Margaret down the hall to a small conference room, the kind they used for uncomfortable conversations. Terminations. "Have a seat," Margaret said, not unkindly. Lena sat, kept her torn skirt angled away from view, tried to look like someone whose life wasn't actively falling apart. "Mr. Brennan notified me that you were late to this morning's executive meeting." "I know, I'm so sorry. My alarm—" Margaret held up a hand. "I'm not interested in excuses, Ms. Brooks. This is your fourth late arrival in 6 weeks. We've had multiple conversations about punctuality and professional standards. I understand, but—" "However," Margaret continued, and something in her tone made Lena stop. "You won't be working with Mr. Brennan anymore, so the issue is somewhat moot." Lena's stomach dropped. "You're firing me." "No." Margaret pulled out a folder, slid it across the table. "You're being transferred, effective immediately." "Transferred?" Lena opened the folder, confused. "To where?" "The CEO's office. You'll be working as personal assistant to Mr. Adrian Cole." The world tilted sideways. "I'm sorry, what?" Margaret's expression remained professionally blank. "Mr. Cole specifically requested you for the position. The salary is significantly higher than your current rate, and the role comes with additional benefits, including—" "Wait." Lena's brain was struggling to catch up. "Adrian Cole? The new CEO?" "Yes." "Requested me?" "Yes." "Why?" Margaret's lips twitched, almost a smile. "That's a question for Mr. Cole. He's waiting in his office to meet with you now." She stood, clearly considering the conversation finished. "I suggest you take a moment to compose yourself first. Executive floor, corner office." Then she left, and Lena sat alone in the conference room, staring at the folder like it might explode. None of this made sense. She'd never even met the new CEO. Never even seen him. The entire company had been buzzing for weeks about Adrian Cole. 32 years old, ruthless businessman, turned his father's struggling company into a billion-dollar empire, single father to a young daughter, but he'd been based in the London office until now. So why would he request her specifically for— Lena's blood ran cold. Adrian Cole. Adrian. The cyclist, the expensive watch, the whiskey-colored eyes. No. No, no, no. She pulled out her phone with shaking hands, searched Adrian Cole CEO, and watched her morning get impossibly worse. The first image that loaded was him. Same face, same sharp jawline, same everything, except in the photo he wore a suit that probably cost more than her car, and he was shaking hands with some politician, looking every inch the powerful billionaire everyone said he was. Lena had yelled at her new CEO, had told him he was careless and privileged and trying to buy his way out of consequences, had basically accused him of being everything wrong with wealthy people. And now he wanted her as his personal assistant. This was either the strangest coincidence in the universe, or she was about to be humiliated in ways she couldn't even imagine. Lena looked down at her torn skirt, her wrinkled blouse, her entire disaster of an existence. "Well," she said to the empty room, "it can't get worse." She was wrong, of course. It could always get worse. The executive floor was a different world. Lena had been to this level exactly once, when she'd first interviewed at Cole Industries 2 years ago. Back then, she'd been so nervous she'd spilled coffee on herself in the elevator and had to do the entire interview with a brown stain spreading across her lap. She hadn't gotten that job. Instead, she'd been placed 3 floors down in a department that handled mid-level client relations, filing reports for managers who barely knew her name. And now she was standing outside the CEO's office, her cardigan still tied awkwardly around her waist, wondering if this was some elaborate firing process for people who cursed out their bosses before technically becoming their employees. The door was dark wood, imposing. A small plaque read Adrian Cole, Chief Executive Officer. Lena knocked before she could talk herself out of it. "Come in." His voice was different here, deeper, with more authority. The voice of someone used to being obeyed. She opened the door. The office was massive, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, Minimalist furniture that managed to look both expensive and uncomfortable. A desk the size of Lena's kitchen table, completely clear except for a laptop and a single photograph in a silver frame. And behind the desk, watching her with those same whiskey eyes, was the man who'd ruined her skirt. Adrian Cole stood as she entered. He'd changed since this morning. Now he wore a charcoal suit that fit him like it had been made specifically for his body, which it probably had. His dark hair was perfectly styled. He looked calm, controlled, every inch the powerful executive. Lena, by contrast, looked like she'd been hit by a bike and dragged through a subway system. "Miss Brooks," he said, "thank you for coming. Did I have a choice?" The words came out sharper than intended. Lena watched Adrian's eyebrow lift slightly. "Everyone has choices," he said. "Please, sit." She sat, keeping her ruined skirt angled away, trying to maintain some dignity. Adrian didn't sit. He walked around the desk, leaned against it, studying her with an intensity that made Lena's skin prickle. "I owe you an apology," he said finally. "You already apologized, on the street, before I—" She stopped herself. "Before you told me I was careless and privileged?" His lips twitched. "Yes, I remember. You weren't wrong." Lena blinked. "I wasn't— Wait, what?" "I wasn't paying attention this morning. I was distracted, rushing, and I made a mistake that cost you professionally. That's on me." He crossed his arms, and Lena noticed the photograph on his desk. A little girl, maybe 5 or 6, with wild dark curls and a gap-toothed smile. "So I'm fixing it. By making me your assistant? By offering you a position that pays triple your current salary, provides better benefits, and puts you in a role where your skills won't be wasted filing reports no one reads." Lena's throat tightened. "You don't know anything about my skills. I know you were running to a meeting despite having every reason to give up and go home. I know you were more concerned about being late than about your torn clothes or the strangers staring at you. I know you have pride even when you probably can't afford it." He tilted his head slightly. "And I know you're the kind of person who'll tell a stranger the truth even when it's uncomfortable. Those are the skills I need." It sounded too good to be true. In Lena's experience, things that sounded too good to be true usually were. "Why me?" she asked quietly. "Really, there are hundreds of qualified people in this building who would kill for this job. Because I don't need someone who'll kill for this job. I need someone who'll tell me when I'm being an asshole." The blunt language caught her off guard. CEOs weren't supposed to talk like that. At least not the ones Lena had encountered in her limited professional experience. Adrian seemed to read her reaction. "I've spent the last 15 years surrounded by people who tell me what I want to hear. It's made me effective, but it's also made me blind to certain things. Like women trying not to lose their jobs because some careless cyclist ruined their morning." He pushed off the desk, walked back around to his chair. "You didn't know who I was this morning, and you still called me out. That's rare. That's valuable." Lena's mind was racing. Triple her current salary would mean she could actually pay rent on time, could fix her broken heater before winter, could maybe, possibly, stop living one emergency away from homelessness. But working directly for Adrian Cole, being in close proximity to this man who somehow made her simultaneously angry and nervous? "I need time to think about it," she said. "No." She looked up, startled. "Excuse me? I need an answer now. If you say no, I'll find someone else, and you'll go back to filing reports for Brennan until he eventually fires you for being late." His tone wasn't cruel, just factual. "If you say yes, you start immediately, and we figure out the rest as we go." "That's not much of a choice." "I told you everyone has choices. I didn't say they were all good ones." Lena hated that he was right, hated that he could see exactly how trapped she was, how little leverage she actually had. But she also hated the idea of going back downstairs, back to the job that was slowly suffocating her, back to the constant fear of not being enough. "Fine," she said. "Yes, I'll take the job." Adrian nodded once, like he'd expected nothing less. "Good. Marcus will handle the paperwork. You'll need a company credit card for expenses, access to my calendar, and clearance for—" He stopped, looking at her properly for the first time since she'd sat down. "You're still wearing the torn skirt." Lena felt her face heat. "It's the only one I have." Something flickered across his expression. Regret, maybe, or understanding. "There's a boutique on the 3rd floor. Tell them to charge everything to my account. Get whatever you need for the office. I don't want your... It's not charity, Ms. Brooks. It's a dress code requirement. You work for me now, which means you're representing this company. Consider it a uniform. He turned back to his laptop, clearly dismissing her. Be back here in an hour. We have a lot to cover. Lena stood, frustration and gratitude tangling in her chest. She made it to the door before he spoke again. Lena. She turned. He'd used her first name, and something about the way he said it made her pulse jump. I meant what I said earlier. I need someone who'll tell me the truth, even when it's uncomfortable, especially when it's uncomfortable. His eyes met hers, serious and searching. Can you do that? She thought about lying, about giving him the easy answer he probably expected. Instead, she said, I don't know. Ask me in a week when I figured out if I like you enough to be honest. Adrian's mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile but was close. Fair enough. Ta-da? The boutique on the third floor was the kind of place Lena had only ever looked at through windows. The sales associate, a woman named Simone with perfect posture and perfectly highlighted hair, greeted her with the kind of polite scrutiny that made Lena immediately aware of every stain, every wrinkle, every sign that she didn't belong here. I'm supposed to charge things to Adrian Cole's account, Lena said, and hated how defensive she sounded. Simone's expression shifted immediately. Of course, Mr. Cole called ahead. We've pulled several options for you. Of course he had. Because Adrian Cole was the kind of man who could make one phone call and have an entire store ready to dress his new assistant. Lena tried on 4 different outfits before finding one that didn't make her feel like she was playing dress-up in someone else's life. A navy sheath dress, simple and professional. Matching blazer. New shoes that didn't have worn-down heels. When she looked at herself in the mirror, she barely recognized the woman staring back. It suits you, Simone said, appearing beside her with a knowing smile. You look like you belong on the executive floor. That was the problem, though. Lena didn't belong there. She was a broke 30-year-old who'd yelled at her boss on the street and somehow stumbled into a job she wasn't qualified for. But she looked the part now, at least. I'll take it, she said. By the time Lena returned to Adrian's office, dressed in clothes that cost more than her monthly rent, she felt like a different person. Or maybe like a more convincing version of the person she'd been pretending to be all along. Adrian looked up from his laptop when she entered. His gaze traveled over her once, quick and assessing, before he nodded. Better? Sit. No comment on the transformation, just back to business. Lena sat, pulling out the notebook she'd grabbed from her old desk. First things first, Adrian said, turning his screen toward her. My schedule is chaos for the next 2 weeks. I need you to streamline it, cancel anything that isn't critical, and make sure I'm home by 6 every evening. 6? Lena raised an eyebrow. That's early for a CEO. I have a daughter, Emma. She's 6. He tapped the photograph on his desk. I pick her up from school every day at 5:30. That's non-negotiable. Something in Lena's chest softened. She'd expected Adrian to be like every other powerful executive she'd encountered. Married to the job, kids raised by nannies, family as an afterthought. Okay, she said. 6 p.m. hard stop. Got it. They spent the next hour going through schedules, protocols, expectations. Adrian was demanding but clear, his instructions precise. He didn't waste time on pleasantries or small talk. This was work, and he treated it like the serious thing it was. Lena found herself appreciating that, the clarity of it. One more thing, Adrian said as the hour wrapped up. I'll need you to attend company events with me. Dinners, galas, networking functions. You'll be expected to smile and look professional while you make deals, Lena guessed. His mouth twitched. Something like that. And if someone asks who I am, tell them the truth. You're my assistant. Right. Lena closed her notebook, stood to leave. Lena. She paused. Adrian was watching her with that same intense focus from earlier, like he was trying to read something written just beneath her skin. I know this is strange, he said quietly. The circumstances, the way it happened. But I wouldn't have offered you this job if I didn't think you could do it. You don't know me, Lena pointed out. No, he agreed. But I'm good at reading people. It's kept me alive in this business. He leaned back in his chair, and for just a moment, he looked tired, human. So prove me right. or prove me wrong. Either way, at least it won't be boring. Lena left his office with her new clothes, her new job, and the strange feeling that her life had just turned in a direction she couldn't see yet. Downstairs at her old desk, she packed up the few personal items she'd accumulated: a chipped coffee mug, a photo of her mother from 10 years ago, a motivational calendar that had stopped being motivational around March. "Heard you got promoted," Sarah from accounting said, leaning against the cubicle wall. "Lucky you." There was something in her tone. Envy, maybe, or suspicion. "Yeah," Lena said. "Lucky me." She didn't feel lucky. She felt like someone who'd just made a deal without reading the fine print, and now she'd have to live with whatever consequences came next. But as Lena rode the elevator back up to the executive floor, her arms full of her old life and her head full of questions about her new one, she couldn't shake the memory of Adrian's voice. "I need someone who'll tell me the truth." Maybe that was something Lena could do. Maybe, for once, being herself, messy, struggling, honest, would be enough. Or maybe she'd crash and burn spectacularly, and this entire strange day would become just another story about how close she'd come before everything fell apart again. Either way, at least it wouldn't be boring. The first week nearly killed her. Not literally, though Lena sometimes wondered if stress could actually stop a person's heart. Adrian Cole ran his life like a military operation. Every minute accounted for, every decision measured, every interaction strategic. And Lena, who'd spent the last 2 years barely keeping her own life together, was suddenly expected to manage his. "Coffee," Adrian said on Tuesday morning, not looking up from the contract he was reviewing. "Black, no sugar. And cancel my 2 o'clock with Patterson. He's wasting my time." Lena, who'd been trying to figure out the complicated espresso machine in the executive break room for 15 minutes, felt her jaw tighten. "Please would be nice." Adrian's pen stopped moving. He looked up, one eyebrow raised. "Excuse me? Please." It's a word people use when they want something from someone else. Lena crossed her arms, even though her heart was hammering. "I'm your assistant, not your servant." For a long moment, Adrian just stared at her. Then, impossibly, his mouth curved into something almost like a smile. "Fair enough. Coffee, please. Black, no sugar. And would you mind canceling my 2 o'clock? See? Was that so hard?" "Apparently harder than I thought." He went back to his contract. "The coffee machine is temperamental. Hit it twice on the left side before you press brew." Lena did. The machine gurgled to life. "And Lena?" She turned. "Thank you for the reminder." Adrian's voice was quieter now, almost sincere. "I forget sometimes that people aren't machines." It was the first real thing he'd said to her all week, the first glimpse of something human underneath the CEO exterior. "You're welcome," Lena said, and surprised herself by meaning it. By Wednesday, she'd figured out the rhythm of Adrian's days. Mornings were for meetings, back-to-back, ruthlessly efficient, each one scheduled for exactly 27 minutes, because Adrian claimed 30 was too long and 25 felt arbitrary. Afternoons were for calls with international offices, reviewing reports, making decisions that affected thousands of employees across multiple countries. And every day at 5:15, no matter what was happening, Adrian shut his laptop and left. "Mr. Cole, the Singapore office is still on the line," Lena said on Thursday, catching him as he grabbed his coat. "Tell them I'll call back tomorrow morning their time." "But they said it's urgent." "Everything is urgent until you decide it's not." Adrian checked his watch, that expensive thing that probably told time in 6 different time zones. "Emma has a school performance tonight. She's playing a tree. If I miss it, I'm a terrible father. Singapore can wait." He left, and Lena stood in his office, the phone still blinking with the waiting call, and felt something shift in her understanding of this man. Adrian Cole was ruthless in business. She'd seen it firsthand, the way he could dismantle someone's argument with 3 precise questions, the way he could say no without apology, the way he treated time like the valuable currency it was. But he was a father first, and somehow that made everything else make more sense. "Ms. Brooks?" The voice on the phone sounded impatient. "Is Mr. Cole still there?" "No," Lena said, and felt a strange surge of protectiveness. "But I'll make sure he calls you first thing tomorrow. Can I help you with anything in the meantime?" She spent the next 40 minutes handling the Singapore issue herself, making notes for Adrian, feeling competent in a way she hadn't felt in years. When she finally left the office at 7:30, exhausted and hungry, she found a text from an unknown number. Emma's performance went well. She didn't drop any leaves. Thank you for handling Singapore. Alina stared at the message, then saved the number to her contacts. Her boss texted like he talked. Brief, factual, efficient, but he'd thanked her. That counted for something. Friday brought the first real fight. You can't schedule board meetings at 5 p.m., Lena said, standing in front of Adrian's desk with his calendar pulled up on her tablet. You have to leave at 5:15 to get Emma. Then I'll move my pickup time. You told me it was non-negotiable. I'm negotiating it. No. Lena set the tablet down, leaned forward. You hired me to manage your schedule, which means I get to tell you when you're being an idiot. This is one of those times. Adrian's expression went cold. Excuse me? You heard me. You can't sacrifice time with your daughter because some board members can't be bothered to meet during normal hours. Either we move the meeting to 3 p.m. or you decline and send someone else. You've worked here for 1 week, Lena. You don't get to tell me how to run my company. I'm not telling you how to run your company. I'm telling you how to keep the promise you made to a 6-year-old who thinks her dad hung the moon. She held his gaze, refusing to back down. So which is more important, the board meeting or being the father you told me you wanted to be? The silence stretched between them, taut as a wire. Then Adrian exhaled, rubbed his face with both hands. 3 p.m., he said quietly. Move the meeting to 3. Good. You're infuriating, you know that. You're the one who said you needed someone to tell you the truth. Lena picked up her tablet. Don't get mad when I actually do it. She left before he could respond, her hand shaking with adrenaline. That evening, she got another text. You were right. Don't let it go to your head. Alina smiled despite herself. The second week was easier. Or maybe Lena was just getting better at reading Adrian's moods, at anticipating what he needed before he asked, at knowing when to push and when to let things go. They fell into a pattern. Coffee in the morning, Adrian's schedule reviewed over breakfast meetings he conducted in his office while Lena took notes. Mornings full of calls and contracts and decisions. Afternoons spent putting out fires, rescheduling disasters, managing the constant chaos that came with running a billion-dollar company. And at 5:15, Adrian left, every single day. You really never stay late? Lena asked on Tuesday, packing up her own things. I used to. Adrian was putting files into his briefcase, methodical, as always. When Emma's mother was alive, I worked 60-hour weeks. Convinced myself I was building something for our family. He paused, his hands stilling. Then Caroline died, and I realized Emma didn't need an empire. She needed a father who showed up. It was the first time he'd mentioned his late wife. Lena had learned the basic facts from office gossip. Caroline Cole had died in a car accident 4 years ago, leaving Adrian a widower with a 2-year-old daughter. But hearing him say it, hearing the weight in his voice, made it real. I'm sorry, Lena said quietly. Me too. Adrian closed his briefcase, looked at her with tired eyes. So yes, I leave at 5:15. Every day. No matter what. Because I already missed too much, and I won't miss any more. He left, and Lena stood in the empty office, understanding him a little better and liking him a little more than she wanted to. The fights continued, but they changed shape. Less like battles, more like negotiations between two people who were learning each other's boundaries. You're not wearing that to the investor meeting, Adrian said on Thursday, eyeing Lena's outfit. What's wrong with it? Nothing's wrong with it. It's just, he gestured vaguely. Not right for today's crowd. Too professional. Lena looked down at her navy suit. You literally told me to dress professionally. I did. But Harrison and his team respond better to... Adrian paused, clearly trying to find the right words. They're old money. They like things relaxed, approachable. You look like you're about to audit them. So you want me to look less competent? I want you to look like someone they'll underestimate. Adrian's expression was calculating now, strategic. It's easier to get what we want when they think we're not trying as hard as they are. Lena hated that he was right, hated the politics of it all. But she'd been poor long enough to know that pride didn't pay rent. Fine, she said, but you're buying lunch. Deal. She changed into a softer blouse, left her blazer behind, pulled her hair down from its usual bun. When she looked in the bathroom mirror, she saw someone younger, less threatening. The meeting went exactly as Adrian had predicted. Harrison and his team barely glanced at Lena, dismissed her as decorative, and walked right into the contract terms Adrian had wanted all along. "You're a manipulative bastard," Lena said afterward, back in the office. "I prefer strategically minded." Adrian was already moving on to the next thing, but she caught the hint of satisfaction in his voice. "And you were perfect. Thank you. I still hate it. I know, that's what makes you good at it." By the end of the second week, Lena had started to understand the shape of Adrian's world. The constant pressure, the impossible decisions, the way every conversation was layered with unspoken agendas. But she also saw the moments when the mask slipped, the way Adrian's voice softened when Emma called during lunch, the way he kept a drawing she'd made, a messy crayon portrait labeled "My Daddy," in his desk drawer, the way he sometimes looked out his office window at the city below and seemed almost lonely despite being surrounded by people all day. "Do you ever regret it?" Lena asked on Friday afternoon, filing contracts while Adrian reviewed quarterly reports. "Regret what?" "Taking over the company. All of this." She gestured around the office. "You could have walked away after your wife died. Focused on Emma full time." Adrian was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Yes and no. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have." He set down his pen, leaned back in his chair. "I regret the time I lost before Caroline died. All those hours I spent here instead of home. But taking over the company gave me purpose when grief would have swallowed me whole. And it's given Emma security, opportunity, a future." He met Lena's eyes. "So yes, I regret it. And no, I wouldn't change it. Both things are true." Lena understood that better than he probably realized. Her own life was full of contradictions, hating her poverty while being proud of surviving it, wanting more while being afraid of what more might cost. "For what it's worth," she said, "I think you're doing okay, with both things." Adrian's expression shifted, something vulnerable flickering across his face before he locked it down again. "Thank you," he said quietly. "That means more than you know." The third week brought the company gala. "I need you there, Scott," Adrian said on Monday, dropping an invitation on Lena's desk. "The annual charity event. Next Friday? It's black tie, it's tedious, and it's unfortunately necessary." Lena picked up the invitation. Heavy cardstock, elegant script, the kind of event she'd only ever seen in movies. "I don't have anything to wear to something like this." "I know, that's why I'm handling it." "Adrian, consider it part of the job. You'll be representing Cole Industries. The company pays for representation." He was already walking back to his office, clearly considering the matter settled. "Simone from the boutique will call you this afternoon. Tell her what you like." "I don't like any of this," Lena muttered, but Adrian was already gone. Simone called at 2 p.m., cheerful and efficient, and by Wednesday Lena found herself in the boutique again, trying on dresses that cost more than her car. "This one," Simone said, holding up a deep emerald gown. "It'll make your eyes look incredible." Lena's eyes were brown, not green, but she tried it on anyway. The woman in the mirror looked like someone from a different life. The dress fit perfectly, elegant without being showy, the color somehow making her skin glow. "I look like you belong on Adrian Cole's arm," Simone finished, smiling. "Which is exactly the point." Lena's stomach flipped. "I'm his assistant, not his date." Simone's expression suggested she didn't see much difference. "Well, either way, you'll be the most interesting person in that ballroom." Lena doubted that, but she took the dress anyway, along with shoes she'd never wear again and jewelry that was on loan because buying it would have been absurd. Friday came too fast. The gala was held at a hotel that probably charged more per night than Lena made in a month. She arrived in a car Adrian had sent, feeling like an imposter, and walked into a ballroom full of people who belonged to a world she'd only ever seen from the outside. Crystal chandeliers, string quartet, women in designer gowns and men in tuxedos, all of them moving through the space with the ease of people who'd been doing this their entire lives. Lena spotted Adrian immediately. He stood near the bar, talking to a group of older men, and even in a room full of wealth and power, he stood out. The tuxedo fit him like a second skin, his dark hair perfectly styled, that commanding presence impossible to miss. Then he saw her. Their eyes met across the ballroom, and something shifted in his expression. Surprise, maybe. Or something else Lena couldn't quite name. He excused himself from the conversation and walked toward her, and Lena's heart did something stupid in her chest. Lena. His voice was different here, softer. You look like I'm playing dress-up in someone else's life? I was going to say beautiful, but your version works too. His mouth curved into that almost smile she was starting to recognize. Thank you for coming. Like I had a choice. You always have a choice. You just keep choosing to stay. He offered his arm. Come on, let me introduce you to people who will bore you to death. The next 2 hours were exactly as tedious as Adrian had promised. Lena met investors and board members and other CEOs, all of them polite and distant, clearly trying to figure out who she was and why she was there. His new assistant, she heard someone whisper. Very young, very pretty. The implication was clear. Lena wanted to scream that it wasn't like that she'd earned this job, that Adrian wasn't some cliché boss sleeping with his employee. But she just smiled and made small talk and played the role she'd been brought here to play. You're good at this, Adrian murmured during a brief moment alone. They were standing near the windows, the city lights spread out below them. At what? Pretending I belong here? At not letting them see how much you hate it. He handed her a glass of champagne from a passing waiter. That takes skill. Or practice being someone I'm not. Adrian's expression shifted, something serious entering his eyes. You're not pretending to be someone else, Lena. You're just showing them a different side of who you already are. Before she could respond, a woman's voice cut through the moment. Adrian, there you are. Lena turned and saw her, tall, blonde, stunning in a red gown that probably cost more than Lena's yearly salary. She moved with the kind of confidence that came from always being the most beautiful person in the room. Victoria. Adrian's tone was carefully neutral. I didn't know you were back in the country. Just flew in yesterday. Victoria's smile was bright, practiced. Then her eyes landed on Lena, and something calculating flickered there. And who's this? Lena Brooks, my assistant. Adrian's hand moved to the small of Lena's back, a gesture that could have been professional or protective or both. Lena, this is Victoria Hale. She runs Hale Enterprises. And used to run much more than that, Victoria said, her smile sharpening. Adrian and I were engaged once. Did he mention that? No, Lena said, keeping her voice level even as her stomach dropped. He didn't. Ancient history, Adrian said, his hand still on Lena's back. If you'll excuse us, Victoria. Actually, I was hoping we could talk about the merger proposal. It's time-sensitive. Victoria's eyes never left Adrian's face. Unless you're too busy. The dismissal was clear. Lena was just the assistant, easily ignored. I'll give you two a moment, Lena said, stepping away from Adrian's touch. I need some air anyway. She walked away before he could stop her, heading for the balcony, needing space to breathe. The cold October air hit her like a slap, but it helped. Out here, away from the crowd and the music and Victoria Hale's knowing smile, Lena could think clearly. Adrian had been engaged to a woman who looked like a model and ran her own company and belonged in his world in ways Lena never would. It shouldn't matter. Lena was his assistant, nothing more. His past relationships were none of her business. But standing there in a borrowed dress, at a party where she didn't belong, watching Adrian through the window as Victoria touched his arm and laughed at something he said, Lena felt the gap between their worlds more clearly than ever. Hiding, she turned to find a man standing in the balcony doorway. Mid-30s, kind eyes, an easy smile that seemed genuine in a room full of practiced ones. Observing, Lena corrected. Ah, same thing I'm doing then. He stepped out onto the balcony, offered his hand. Daniel Reeves. I run a non-profit downtown. Very out of place at events like this. Lena Brooks, personal assistant to Adrian Cole, also out of place. Well, at least we can be out of place together. Daniel leaned against the railing beside her. How long have you worked for Cole? 3 weeks? And you're already at the fancy galas? He must think highly of you. Lena laughed, a bitter sound. Or he just needed someone to stand next to him while he networks. I doubt that's all it is. Daniel glanced back through the window where Adrian was still talking to Victoria. I've known Adrian for a few years. He's particular about who he keeps close. If you're here, it means something. It was meant to be comforting, Lena knew, but it just made her feel more confused. They talked for a while, easy conversation about the city, about work, about nothing important. Daniel was nice, uncomplicated, the kind of man who probably didn't come with billion-dollar companies and ex-fiancés and lives too big for Lena to fit into. I should get back, she said finally. Can I give you my card? We're always looking for volunteers at the nonprofit, and Daniel smiled a little shy. I'd like to see you again, if you're interested. Lena took the card, surprised. I'll think about it. Inside, the gala was winding down. Lena found Adrian near the exit, alone now, checking his phone. There you are, he said when he saw her. I was about to send a search party. I was just getting some air. With Daniel Reeves. There was something in his tone, not quite accusation, but close. Lena's defenses went up. Is that a problem? No, Daniel's a good man. Adrian pocketed his phone, studied her face. Did he ask you out? That's none of your business. You're right, it's not. But his jaw was tight, his expression unreadable. Ready to leave? The car ride back was quiet. Lena stared out the window, watching the city blur past, acutely aware of Adrian beside her in the darkness. Victoria and I ended things 5 years ago, he said suddenly. Before I met Caroline, before Emma. It's done. You don't owe me an explanation. Maybe not, but I'm giving you one anyway. He shifted in his seat, and Lena could feel his eyes on her. She wants back in. The merger proposal is just an excuse, but I'm not interested. Again, not my business. Lena, I'm your assistant, Adrian. Who you date, who you were engaged to, who wants back into your life, none of that has anything to do with me. She finally looked at him, and her chest ached at the frustration in his expression. I need to remember that. We both do. The car pulled up outside her apartment building. Small, shabby, a stark reminder of the different worlds they inhabited. Thank you for the dress, Lena said, reaching for the door handle. And for the evening. Lena, wait. She paused. Adrian looked like he wanted to say something important. Instead, he just said, You were right earlier. When you said you were playing dress-up in someone else's life, I shouldn't have pushed you into this world. It wasn't fair. You didn't push me. I chose to come. Why? The question hung between them, heavy with things neither of them was ready to say. Because you asked me to, Lena said finally, and because somewhere in the last 3 weeks, I started to actually care about whether you succeed. She got out of the car before he could respond, but she felt his eyes on her all the way to her door. That night, Lena lay in bed still wearing the emerald dress, staring at Daniel Reeves's card on her nightstand, and tried not to think about the way Adrian had looked at her across the ballroom, tried not to think about Victoria Hale's hand on his arm, tried not to think about the fact that somewhere in the chaos of the last 3 weeks, working for Adrian Cole had stopped being just a job and started being something far more dangerous. Monday morning came too fast. Lena walked into Adrian's office with coffee and his schedule, determined to reset everything back to professional boundaries. Morning, she said briskly. You have a 9 a.m. with the board, lunch with the Singapore team via video conference, and Emma's parent-teacher conference at 3. I've cleared your afternoon after that. Thank you. Adrian looked tired, like maybe he hadn't slept well either. About Friday, already forgotten. Lena set his coffee down, kept her voice light. Just another work event. Right, of course. They worked in silence for the next hour, the easy rhythm they'd developed over the past weeks suddenly stiff and uncomfortable. At noon, Lena's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Hi, Lena. This is Daniel. Enjoyed meeting you Friday. Any interest in coffee this week? No pressure. D. She stared at the message, then glanced up to find Adrian watching her. Everything okay? Fine. Lena put her phone away. Just a personal message. From Daniel? How did you... She stopped, shook her head. Never mind. Yes, from Daniel. Adrian's expression went carefully blank. Are you going to respond? I don't know. Maybe. She crossed her arms, defensive. Would that be a problem? No, why would it be? I don't know, Adrian. You tell me. The tension stretched between them, sharp as a blade. Finally, Adrian said, "Daniel's a good man. If you want to see him, you should." "But?" "No but. I mean it." He went back to his reports, and Lena went back to her desk, and the rest of the day passed in that same careful distance. That evening, Lena texted Daniel back. "Coffee sounds nice? Wednesday afternoon?" His response came immediately. "Perfect. There's a place on 5th Street, 2 p.m. See you there." She tried to feel excited about it. Daniel was nice, stable, interested in her for reasons that had nothing to do with torn skirts or professional obligations. This was good. This was normal. So why did it feel like a mistake? Wednesday's coffee with Daniel was easy. They talked about his nonprofit, about her work with Adrian, about their shared love of old movies and terrible puns. "You're easy to talk to," Daniel said, smiling across the table. "I like that." "So are you." And he was. Daniel was everything Lena should want, kind, genuine, uncomplicated. But when he walked her back to the office afterward and his hand brushed hers, she felt nothing. No spark. No pull. Just pleasant company and the nagging sense that she was using him as a shield against feelings she didn't want to examine. "Can I see you again?" Daniel asked at the building entrance. "Sure," Lena said, because she didn't know how to say no without explaining why. She rode the elevator back to the executive floor, feeling worse than before. Adrian was in his office, on a call. He glanced up when Lena entered, and something flickered across his face when he saw her. "I have to go," he said into the phone. "We'll finish this tomorrow." He hung up, stood. "How was coffee?" "It was fine." "Just fine?" "Why do you care?" The words came out sharper than Lena intended. Adrian flinched. "I don't. I'm just making conversation." "No, you're not. You're—" Lena stopped, frustrated. "I don't know what you're doing, but it's making everything complicated. I hired you to be my assistant. That's all this is." "Then act like it." She grabbed a stack of contracts from his desk, needing something to do with her hands. "Stop looking at me like I'm something other than your employee. Stop texting me outside of work hours about things that aren't work. Stop caring who I have coffee with. You're right." Adrian's voice was flat now, controlled. "I apologize. It won't happen again." He sat back down, turned to his computer, effectively dismissing her. Lena left his office, feeling like she'd won an argument, but lost something more important in the process. The rest of the week limped by in painful professionalism. Adrian was polite, distant, every interaction stripped back to the bare essentials. No personal questions, no texts about Emma's latest drawing or random observations about his day. Lena told herself this was better, cleaner, the way it should have been all along. She went to dinner with Daniel on Friday. He was charming, attentive, perfect, and Lena spent the entire evening wishing she was in Adrian's office arguing about his schedule instead. "You seem distracted," Daniel said over dessert. "I'm sorry. It's been a long week. Your boss working you too hard?" "Something like that?" Daniel reached across the table, took her hand. "You know, if you ever need to talk about it, or anything else, I'm here. No judgment." He was too nice, too understanding, everything Lena didn't deserve. "Thank you," she said, and meant it even as guilt twisted in her stomach. That night, alone in her apartment, Lena finally admitted the truth she'd been avoiding for weeks. She was falling for Adrian Cole, for his sharp mind and his dedication to his daughter, and the moments when he looked at her like she was the only person in the room who mattered. For the way he challenged her and frustrated her and somehow made her want to be better just to prove she could keep up. It was stupid, impossible, a fantasy that would only end in heartbreak. But knowing that didn't make it any less true. Her phone buzzed, a text from Adrian. "Emma drew you a picture. She wanted me to tell you, something about a princess who wears business clothes and fights dragons with spreadsheets. I'll bring it Monday if you want it." Lena stared at the message, her chest tight. "I'd love that. Thank you." 3 dots appeared, like he was typing, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, "You're welcome. Good night, Lena. Good night, Adrian." She fell asleep holding her phone, wondering how something that felt this right could be so completely wrong. Monday morning brought Emma's drawing and a silence that felt louder than any argument. Adrian handed Lena the picture without meeting her eyes. A crayon sketch of a woman in a navy dress holding what might have been either a sword or a very aggressive pen, standing on top of a pile of papers while a green dragon cowered in the corner. The princess wore glasses Lena didn't actually own and had wild brown hair that somehow captured Lena's perpetual state of controlled chaos perfectly. She said you reminded her of the librarian at school, Adrian said, still not looking at her. The one who doesn't let anyone talk during story time, but always has the best book recommendations. Lena's throat tightened. That's really sweet. She wants to meet you. Keeps asking why Daddy's new assistant never comes over like Marcus used to. Marcus had been Adrian's previous assistant, a man in his 50s who'd retired to Florida. Apparently he'd been invited to family dinners and Emma's birthday parties, had been part of Adrian's life in ways that extended beyond the office. I don't think that's a good idea, Lena said carefully. Adrian finally looked at her. Why not? Because I'm trying to keep things professional, like you said we should. I never said that. You implied it. When you stopped texting, stopped asking about my life, started treating me like I'm just... She gestured vaguely. Whatever this is now. I was following your lead. His voice was quiet, controlled. You told me to act like you're just my employee, so I did. Well, it's working. Congratulations. Adrian's jaw tightened. Lena, your 9 a.m. is waiting in the conference room, she interrupted, unable to continue this conversation without saying things she couldn't take back. I'll handle the morning emails. She left before he could respond, Emma's drawing clutched in her hand like evidence of everything complicated between them. The week crawled forward in that same painful distance. Adrian was polite, professional, completely closed off. Lena matched his energy, and together they created an office environment that was efficient, productive, and absolutely miserable. Daniel texted every day. Sweet messages about his work, questions about hers, invitations to coffee or lunch or dinner. Lena said yes more often than not, partly because she liked him, and partly because being with Daniel was easier than sitting alone in her apartment thinking about Adrian. You're seeing someone, Sarah from accounting said on Wednesday, catching Lena in the break room. You have that look. What look? The one where you smile at your phone but it doesn't quite reach your eyes. Sarah poured herself coffee, studying Lena with the kind of knowing expression that made Lena uncomfortable. It's the guy from the nonprofit, isn't it? Someone saw you two at that Italian place on 5th. We've had coffee a few times, it's not serious. Does Mr. Cole know? The question caught Lena off guard. Why would that matter? Sarah shrugged, but something in her expression suggested she knew more than she was saying. No reason. Just seems like you two spend a lot of time together. Figured he might have opinions. He doesn't. It's none of his business. Right. Of course not. But Sarah's words lingered. Did Adrian have opinions? Did it bother him that Lena was seeing Daniel? And why did Lena care either way? Thursday afternoon brought the first real crack in Adrian's composure. Lena was filing contracts when Victoria Hale walked into the office unannounced, dressed in a cream suit that probably cost more than Lena's car, and wearing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Is Adrian available? Victoria asked, not bothering with pleasantries. He's on a call with Tokyo. Should be done in 15 minutes. Perfect. I'll wait. Victoria settled into one of the chairs facing Adrian's office, crossing her legs with practiced elegance. So, you're the new assistant. That's me. Lasting longer than I expected. Most people can't handle Adrian's intensity for more than a few weeks. Victoria's gaze was assessing, calculating. What's your secret? I don't have one. I just do my job. And the job includes attending galas? Meeting his daughter? Victoria's smile sharpened. That's not standard assistant territory. Lena's hands stilled on the files. How do you know about Emma? Adrian and I have dinner occasionally. We talk. Victoria leaned back, completely at ease. He mentioned that Emma's been asking about you. Apparently you've made quite an impression. The words felt like a test, and Lena didn't know how to pass it. I haven't met Emma, she said carefully. Whatever Adrian told you, he told me he's being careful, that he doesn't want to introduce anyone into Emma's life who might not stay. Victoria's eyes never left Lena's face. Smart man. Emma's already lost one mother. She doesn't need to get attached to someone temporary. The implication was clear. Lena was temporary, replaceable, not someone who belonged in Adrian's real life. "If you'll excuse me," Lena said, standing, "I have work to do." She made it to the break room before the tears started. Angry tears, frustrated tears, tears that came from weeks of fighting feelings she shouldn't have while trying to convince herself she didn't care. "Lena?" She turned to find Adrian standing in the doorway, concern written across his face. "I'm fine. Victoria's waiting for you." "I don't care about Victoria. What happened?" "Nothing. I'm just—" Lena wiped her eyes, hating that he was seeing her like this. "It's been a long day." Adrian stepped closer and Lena could smell his cologne, something expensive and subtle that she'd started associating with safety. "Did Victoria say something to you?" "Just the truth, that I'm temporary, that Emma doesn't need to get attached to someone who won't stay." "She had no right." "She was right, though, wasn't she?" Lena looked up at him, and something in her chest cracked open. "I am temporary. This whole thing, working for you, being in your life, it has an expiration date. We both know that." "I don't—" Adrian stopped, his expression pained. "That's not what I want. It doesn't matter what you want, or what I want." Lena took a shaky breath. "You're a billionaire CEO with a daughter and a life I can't be part of. I'm your assistant who can barely afford rent and has no business feeling—" She cut herself off before she said too much. "Feeling what?" Adrian's voice was rough, urgent. "Lena, feeling what?" "Nothing. Forget it." She tried to move past him, but he caught her arm, gentle but firm. "Don't do that. Don't shut down when things get real." His eyes searched hers, and Lena saw her own confusion reflected back. "I've been trying to give you space, trying to keep things professional, because that's what you said you wanted, but it's killing me." "Adrian, I think about you all the time. Wonder if you're okay, if you're happy, if Daniel is treating you the way you deserve." His hand was still on her arm, warm through her sleeve. "And I know I shouldn't care because you're right. You're my assistant, and this is complicated and probably a terrible idea. But I do care. I can't seem to stop." Lena's heart was hammering so hard she could barely breathe. "You can't say things like that." "Why not?" "Because I'm seeing Daniel. Because you have Victoria showing up at your office talking about dinners together. Because nothing about this makes sense, and I don't know how to—" "Are you in love with him?" Adrian asked suddenly. "Daniel, are you in love with him?" "That's not fair. It's a simple question." "No, it's not." Lena pulled away, needing distance. "I like Daniel. He's kind and stable, and he wants me without all this complication." "That's not what I asked." "I know what you asked." She met his eyes, and the truth sat heavy on her tongue. "No, I'm not in love with Daniel." Adrian's expression shifted, something like relief flooding his features. "Then why—" "Because loving someone else would be even more stupid," Lena said, and walked out before he could see her completely fall apart. She spent the rest of the afternoon at her desk, pretending to work while actually trying not to think about the conversation in the break room. Adrian stayed in his office with Victoria for 2 hours, their voices occasionally drifting through the door. Too quiet to make out words, but loud enough to remind Lena that Victoria belonged in Adrian's world in ways she never would. When Victoria finally left, she stopped by Lena's desk. "Take care of him," Victoria said, and there was something almost genuine in her expression. "Adrian acts tough, but he's more fragile than people think, especially when it comes to people he cares about." Then she was gone, leaving Lena more confused than ever. That evening, Daniel took Lena to a poetry reading in a bookstore downtown. It was sweet, thoughtful, exactly the kind of date Lena would have loved a month ago. But all she could think about was Adrian's voice asking if she was in love with Daniel, the way he'd looked at her like her answer mattered more than anything. "You're distracted again," Daniel said during the intermission, his tone gentle but resigned. "I'm sorry. I don't mean to be." "It's him, isn't it? Your boss." Daniel's smile was sad. "I've been trying to ignore it, but the way you talk about him, or carefully don't talk about him, it's pretty obvious." Lena felt shame burn through her. "Daniel, I'm so sorry. You've been nothing but wonderful, and You can't help who you care about." He took her hand, squeezed it once. "I like you, Lena, a lot. But I'm not interested in being someone's second choice." "You're not?" "I am, and that's okay. I'd rather know now than 6 months from now when we're both in deeper." He stood, pulled out his wallet, and left cash for their drinks. For what it's worth, I hope it works out. With him. You deserve to be happy. He kissed her cheek and left, and Lena sat alone in the bookstore feeling like she'd just lost something good because she was too busy wanting something impossible. Friday brought the worst day yet. Adrian was scheduled to attend a charity luncheon at noon, one of those events where wealthy people ate expensive food and wrote checks to feel better about their privilege. Lena had the details memorized. The Plaza Hotel, room 402, arrive at 11:45. At 11:30, Adrian's phone rang. Lena heard his sharp intake of breath, then, "I'll be right there." He emerged from his office, face pale, already grabbing his coat. Emma's school called. She fell on the playground. They think she broke her arm. His hands were shaking as he pulled on his jacket. "I need to go. I'll cancel the luncheon. It's the Henderson Foundation. They're our biggest charitable partner. If I don't show, then I'll go in your place." The words were out before Lena had fully thought them through. "I know the pitch. I've been to enough of these things. I can handle it." Adrian stared at her. "Lena, you don't have to." "Emma needs you. That's more important than any luncheon." She was already pulling up the details on her tablet. "Go be with your daughter. I've got this." For a moment, Adrian looked like he might argue. Then he crossed the space between them and pulled Lena into a quick, tight hug that left her breathless. "Thank you," he said against her hair. "I'll call you when I know more." Then he was gone, and Lena was left standing in his office, her heart racing, trying to remember how to breathe normally. She made it to the plaza at 11:43, wearing the navy dress from the boutique and a confidence she didn't quite feel. The room was full of wealthy donors, foundation board members, and the kind of people who could write six-figure checks without blinking. "Ms. Brooks," Richard Henderson himself approached, looking concerned. "Where's Adrian?" "Family emergency? His daughter was injured. He sends his apologies." Lena straightened her shoulders. "But I'm here to represent Cole Industries, and I promise you won't be disappointed." Henderson's expression was skeptical, but he gestured to the podium. "Well then, show us what you've got." Lena had watched Adrian give dozens of presentations, had seen the way he commanded a room, the way he made people care about things they hadn't known mattered. She couldn't copy his style, she wasn't him, but she could be herself, honest, direct, passionate about the work Cole Industries did. She talked about the company's commitment to education initiatives, about the scholarships they'd funded, the schools they'd built, the lives they'd changed. She shared statistics Adrian had drilled into her, but she also shared stories. The thank you letter from a single mother whose daughter was now the first in their family to attend college. The photo of a renovated computer lab in a struggling school district. Adrian Cole believes that wealth is only meaningful if it creates opportunity, Lena said, and she meant every word. Not just for his own daughter, but for every child who deserves a chance. When she finished, the room was silent. Then Henderson started clapping, and the rest of the room followed. "That was remarkable," Henderson said afterward, shaking Lena's hand. "Tell Adrian his assistant is wasted in an administrative role. She should be running development." Lena's phone buzzed. "Adrian, Emma's okay. Clean break, needs a cast. We're at St. Mary's if you want to stop by after the luncheon. She's asking for you." Lena stared at the message, her chest tight. Emma was asking for her. A 6-year-old who'd never met her was asking for her. She texted back, "On my way." St. Mary's Hospital was 20 minutes across town. Lena caught a cab, still in her dress and heels, and tried not to think too hard about what she was doing. She found them in the pediatric wing. Emma sat on an examination table, her small arm wrapped in a bright pink cast, tears still streaking her face. Adrian sat beside her, holding her good hand, looking exhausted and relieved and so completely human it made Lena's heart ache. "Lena!" Emma's face lit up when she saw her. "Daddy said you were coming." "Hi, sweetheart." Lena crossed the room, suddenly nervous. "I heard you had an adventure today." "I fell off the monkey bars. It hurt really bad." Emma held up her cast proudly. "But now I have this, and everyone at school is going to think I'm so cool." "Definitely cool. Pink was the right choice." "That's what I said," Emma beamed. "Daddy wanted boring white, but I said pink matches my backpack." Adrian met Lena's eyes over Emma's head, and something passed between them. Gratitude, trust, something deeper that Lena couldn't name. "How did the luncheon go?" he asked quietly. Good. Henderson loved the presentation. Said I should be running development instead of filing your contracts. He's not wrong. They stayed at the hospital for another hour while the doctors gave final instructions. Emma talked non-stop about school, her friends, the dragon picture she'd drawn for Lena, her upcoming birthday party that was princess-themed but also had dinosaurs because why choose? You should come to my party, Emma said suddenly, looking at Lena with wide, hopeful eyes. Daddy says you're really busy, but maybe you're not busy on my birthday? Lena glanced at Adrian, unsure. Emma, we talked about this, Adrian said gently. Lena has her own life. We can't just... I'd love to come, Lena heard herself say. When is it? Next Saturday. We're having it at the park, and there's going to be a bounce house and face painting and... Emma kept talking, but Lena wasn't really listening anymore because Adrian was looking at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Later, in the hospital parking lot, while Emma was inside using the bathroom, Adrian finally spoke. You didn't have to do that. The luncheon, coming here, agreeing to the party. He leaned against his car, and in the fading afternoon light he looked tired. I know this isn't what you signed up for. Maybe not, but I wanted to. Lena wrapped her arms around herself against the November cold. Daniel broke things off, said he wasn't interested in being second choice. Adrian's expression shifted. I'm sorry. Don't be. He was right. She met his eyes. I couldn't stop thinking about you, about us, about whatever this is. Lena, I know it's complicated. I know it doesn't make sense. But after today, watching you with Emma, seeing how scared you were, her voice cracked. I don't want to keep pretending I don't care about you. Adrian crossed the distance between them in 2 steps, and suddenly his hands were on her face and he was kissing her, urgent and desperate and full of everything they'd been holding back for weeks. Lena kissed him back, her hands fisting in his shirt, feeling like she was finally doing something right, even if it was probably the stupidest decision she'd ever made. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Adrian rested his forehead against hers. This is a terrible idea, he said. The worst. I'm your boss. There are rules about this. So many rules. And I have Emma to think about. I can't just... I know. Lena pulled back slightly, looking at him. So what do we do? Before Adrian could answer, Emma emerged from the hospital, running toward them with her good arm waving. Daddy! Lena! The nurse gave me a lollipop even though it's not my birthday. She skidded to a stop, looking between them with a child's uncanny perception. Are you guys fighting? No, baby, Adrian said, his voice remarkably steady. Just talking about work stuff. Oh, boring. Emma grabbed Lena's hand with her good one. Can Lena come have dinner with us? We're getting pizza because the doctor said I was brave. Adrian met Lena's eyes over Emma's head, and a whole conversation happened in that glance. Are you sure about this? No, but I'm doing it anyway. Pizza sounds perfect, Lena said. They went to a place Emma loved, loud and brightly lit and full of families. Emma sat between them in the booth, chattering about her cast and school and 100 other 6-year-old concerns. And for a few hours, Lena let herself pretend this was normal, that she was just having dinner with Adrian and his daughter, that she belonged in this moment. But later, when Adrian dropped her off at her apartment, reality crashed back. We need to figure this out, he said, the car idling at the curb. What we're doing, what it means. I know. I can't promise you easy. My life is complicated. Emma has to come first. And the company, there are policies about relationships between executives and staff. I know, Lena said again, because she did. She'd known from the start that this was impossible. But I don't want to lose you. Adrian's voice was rough. Not as my assistant, not as whatever else this is becoming. So we figure it out. Together. Lena reached across the console, took his hand. One disaster at a time. He laughed, short and tired. That's my life in a nutshell. Mine too. Maybe that's why this works. Lena got out of the car, but before she could close the door, Adrian called her name. Yeah? Thank you. For today, for Emma, for... He stopped, seeming to struggle with words. For staying. Any time, Lena said, and meant it. She watched his car disappear down the street, then went upstairs to her apartment where she sat on her threadbare couch and finally let herself feel everything she'd been holding back. Fear. hope. The terrifying knowledge that she was falling for a man whose life was too big, too complicated, too far from anything she'd ever known. But also the knowledge that when Emma had asked for her, when Adrian had needed her, she'd been there, and it had felt right in ways nothing else had in a long time. Her phone buzzed. A text from Adrian. Emma wants to know if you'll help her decorate her cast tomorrow. Something about glitter and stickers and making it the best cast in her whole school. I tried to tell her you probably have plans, but she's very persistent. Lena smiled despite everything. Tell her I'll bring extra glitter, the really annoying kind that gets everywhere. You're going to regret that when my car is covered in sparkles. Probably. But it'll be worth it. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally. Yeah, it will. Lena fell asleep that night with her phone in her hand and hope in her chest, not knowing that everything was about to get much more complicated, because Monday morning would bring Victoria Hale back to Adrian's office with a merger proposal that could change everything. And a week from now, Lena would walk in on something that would make her question every choice she'd made since the day a stranger on a bike had torn her skirt and changed her life forever. But for now, she had tomorrow. Glitter and stickers and a little girl who wanted her there. Sometimes that was enough. Sunday afternoon found Lena sitting on Adrian's living room floor, surrounded by enough glitter to coat a small planet, while Emma carefully placed stickers on her pink cast with the concentration of a surgeon. Not the unicorn there, Emma said, peeling it off for the 3rd time. It has to go next to the rainbow so they match. My mistake, Lena said solemnly, handing over a different sticker. Adrian watched from the kitchen doorway, coffee mug in hand, wearing jeans and a worn Columbia sweatshirt that made him look younger. More real. This was Adrian without the armor. No suit, no boardroom, just a father watching his daughter cover her broken arm in sparkly nonsense. You're really committing to this, he said, nodding at the glitter in Lena's hair. Emma said go big or go home. I didn't say those words exactly, Emma corrected, not looking up from her careful sticker placement. I said I wanted the best cast, and Lena said we'd make it happen. Well, mission accomplished. That cast is definitely memorable. Daddy, you're not helping. You're just standing there drinking coffee. Someone has to supervise. But Adrian set down his mug and joined them on the floor, his knee brushing Lena's. What do you need me to do? Hold still, Emma said, and promptly stuck a glitter heart on his forehead. Adrian froze. Emma, now you match. Emma dissolved into giggles, and Lena couldn't help laughing too at the sight of Billionaire CEO Adrian Cole sitting cross-legged on his floor with a sparkly heart on his face. I'm surrounded by troublemakers, Adrian said, but he was smiling, a real smile that reached his eyes and made Lena's chest ache. They spent another hour on the cast, then Emma insisted on showing Lena her room, which was exactly what Lena would have expected. Pink walls covered in drawings, shelves full of books and stuffed animals, a princess castle in the corner next to a bin of dinosaurs, because Emma believed in options. This is my favorite, Emma said, pulling out a worn stuffed rabbit. Daddy gave it to me when I was really little, before Mommy went to heaven. Lena's throat tightened. It's very special. Do you have kids? Emma asked suddenly, settling on her bed with the rabbit. No, just me. What about a husband or a boyfriend? Emma, Adrian said from the doorway, his voice holding a warning. That's not polite to ask. Why not? I'm just wondering. Emma looked at Lena with those big dark eyes, so much like her father's. I think you should be Daddy's girlfriend. Then you could come over all the time and we could do crafts and you could read me stories because Daddy does the voices wrong. I do not do the voices wrong, Adrian protested. You make the princess sound like a pirate. That was one time, and I was tired. Lena watched them bicker, feeling like her heart might crack open from how much she wanted this. This easy warmth, this family, this life she had no business imagining herself into. I should probably go, she said quietly. Adrian's expression shifted. Stay for dinner. Emma wants to show you her cooking skills. I can make grilled cheese, Emma announced proudly. With Daddy's help because I'm not allowed near the stove alone yet. Please stay, Adrian said, and there was something vulnerable in his voice. Unless you need to... No, yes, I'll stay. Dinner was chaotic and perfect. Emma narrated every step of grilled cheese construction while Adrian handled the actual cooking, and Lena set the table in the dining room she suspected rarely got used. The apartment itself was stunning, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, modern furniture that managed to look comfortable, Emma's chaos scattered throughout in the form of crayon drawings and abandoned toys. "This place is beautiful," Lena said. "It's too big," Adrian admitted, flipping sandwiches. "I bought it right after Caroline died. Thought we needed space, fresh start, all that, but mostly it just echoes." "It doesn't echo now," Emma said. "Not with Lena here." After dinner, Emma fell asleep on the couch during a movie, her casted arm draped over her rabbit, glitter still sparkling in her dark curls. Adrian carried her to bed while Lena cleaned up the kitchen, trying not to feel too comfortable in this space that wasn't hers. "She really likes you," Adrian said when he returned, leaning against the counter. "I haven't seen her this excited about someone since—" He stopped. "Well, in a long time. She's an amazing kid. You're doing something right. Most days I feel like I'm barely keeping it together." Adrian ran a hand through his hair, and Lena noticed the exhaustion around his eyes. "The company, being a single parent, trying to be enough for both. It's a lot. You don't have to be both parents, Adrian. You just have to be you. That's enough." He looked at her for a long moment, then crossed the kitchen and kissed her, slow and deliberate, his hands gentle on her face. "Stay," he murmured against her lips. "Not for anything. Just stay." So Lena stayed. They sat on the couch with the city lights spread below them, talking about nothing important until the conversation drifted into comfortable silence. Adrian's arm was around her shoulders, her head resting against his chest, listening to his heartbeat and trying not to think about how temporary this might be. "I have a business trip next week," Adrian said eventually. "Chicago. 3 days. I usually bring Emma, but with her arm—" "I can stay with her?" Lena offered. "If you trust me." "I do." He pressed a kiss to her hair. "But Lena, we need to talk about—" His phone rang. Adrian glanced at the screen and sighed. "It's the London office. I have to take this." He disappeared into his study, and Lena sat alone in his living room, wondering what he'd been about to say. Monday brought reality crashing back. Lena arrived at the office early, still floating on yesterday's warmth, only to find Victoria Hale already in Adrian's office. Through the glass, she could see them sitting close together, Victoria's hand on Adrian's arm, both of them looking at something on his laptop. "Morning meeting," Margaret from HR said, appearing beside Lena's desk. "Ms. Hale brought a merger proposal. They've been at it since 7. "Right, of course." Lena tried to focus on work, but every time she glanced up, Victoria was still there, still touching Adrian's arm, still leaning close, still looking like she belonged in his world in ways Lena never would. At 11, they emerged. Victoria was smiling, triumphant. "Think about it," she said to Adrian. "This could change everything for both our companies. And maybe—" She glanced at Lena, her smile sharpening. "Maybe for us too." After Victoria left, Lena waited for Adrian to explain, to reassure her, to acknowledge what had happened between them yesterday. Instead, he just said, "Can you clear my afternoon? I need to review this proposal thoroughly." "Sure, anything else?" "No, thank you." He closed his office door, and Lena sat at her desk feeling stupid for thinking anything had changed. The week crawled forward in painful uncertainty. Adrian was distracted, spending hours on calls with Victoria, reviewing merger documents, barely looking at Lena except to give instructions. "Is everything okay?" Lena finally asked on Wednesday. "Fine, just busy." Adrian didn't look up from his laptop. "Can you reschedule my Chicago trip? I need to stay here and work on this merger." "What about Emma? You promised her you'd take her to see the Bean." "It'll have to wait." "Adrian, I said it'll wait." His tone was sharp, dismissive. "Was there something else?" Lena bit back everything she wanted to say and left his office, her chest tight with hurt and anger. That evening, she got a text from Victoria. "Coffee tomorrow? I think we should talk, woman to woman." Lena almost deleted it, but curiosity, or maybe masochism, made her agree. They met at a cafe near the office, Victoria perfect in designer casual wear, Lena still in her work clothes, already at a disadvantage. "Thank you for coming," Victoria said, stirring her latte. "I know this is awkward. What do you want?" "To be honest with you. Because I think you deserve that." Victoria met Lena's eyes. "Adrian and I have history, real history. We were engaged, planning a life together before things fell apart. And lately, working on this merger, we've been remembering why we worked so well together. Lena's stomach turned. Why are you telling me this? Because I've seen the way you look at him, and the way he looks at you. Victoria's expression was almost pitying. You're smart, Lena. You have to know this. Whatever this is between you two, it's not sustainable. That's not your business. Maybe not, but Adrian is. He needs someone who understands his world, someone who can be a partner in every sense, personal, professional, someone who can help him build something lasting. Victoria leaned forward. Can you be that person? Honestly, I don't know, Lena admitted, hating how her voice shook. But that's between me and Adrian. Is it? Because from where I'm sitting, Adrian's been avoiding you all week, canceling plans, choosing work over everything else. Victoria's smile was gentle, cruel. That's who he is, Lena. When things matter most, Adrian Cole chooses the company. He always has. That's why we didn't work. And it's why you won't either. Lena left the cafe feeling like she'd been gutted. And the worst part was Victoria wasn't wrong. Thursday afternoon, Lena walked into Adrian's office with his coffee and found him on a video call with Victoria. They were laughing about something, easy and familiar, and Victoria's hand was visible on screen, touching someone's arm. Adrian's arm. He looked up, saw Lena standing there, and something flickered across his face. Guilt, maybe. I'll call you back, he said into the screen, and ended the call. Sorry, Lena said flatly. Didn't mean to interrupt. You weren't interrupting. We were just finishing up. Right. Looked very finished. She set down his coffee harder than necessary. Victoria said you two have been spending a lot of time together, working on the merger. We have. It's a complicated deal. Is that all it is? The question came out before Lena could stop it. A deal? Adrian's expression closed off. What are you asking? I'm asking if Sunday meant anything to you. If I meant anything, or if I'm just... Her voice cracked. Something temporary until you figure out what you really want. Lena, because Victoria was very clear about what she wants, and from where I'm standing, you're not exactly fighting her off. That's not fair. None of this is fair. Lena's anger finally broke free. I'm falling for you, Adrian. Against every bit of common sense I have, I'm falling for you. And you're sitting here having cozy video calls with your ex-fiancé while I try to figure out where the hell I fit in your life. This isn't the time. When is the time? When you're not too busy. When the merger is done. When Emma's older. There's always going to be something more important than this. Than us. Adrian stood, his own frustration visible now. You think this is easy for me? You think I don't want... He stopped, seemed to wrestle with himself. I have responsibilities. Emma, the company, thousands of employees depending on my decisions. I can't just what? Choose me? Lena's eyes stung. I'm not asking you to choose me over Emma. I would never ask that. But I need to know if there's room for me anywhere in your life or if I'm kidding myself. I don't know, Adrian said, and the honesty in his voice was worse than any lie. I don't know how to make this work, how to be what Emma needs, what the company needs, what you need. I don't know if I can do all of it. Then maybe you should figure that out, Lena said quietly, because I can't keep doing this, wondering if Sunday was real or just a moment you're going to regret. She left before he could respond, her heart breaking with every step. Friday brought Emma's birthday party. Lena almost didn't go. Spent the whole morning convincing herself it would be better to stay away, to start putting distance between herself and this impossible situation. But she'd promised Emma. And despite everything with Adrian, she couldn't break that promise. The park was full of 6-year-olds running wild, parents chatting in clusters, decorations in pink and purple and silver. Emma spotted Lena immediately and ran over, her casted arm covered in signatures now. You came. I thought maybe you couldn't because Daddy said you were busy with work stuff. I promised I'd be here. I keep my promises. Adrian was by the bounce house, talking to another parent, but he looked over when Emma dragged Lena into the party. Their eyes met, and Lena saw exhaustion, regret, something that might have been longing. She looked away first. The party was chaos. Cake and face paint and games that made no sense but delighted Emma anyway. Lena helped corral children, avoided Adrian as much as possible, and tried not to feel like her heart was being ripped out every time Emma grabbed her hand or called her name. "Lena, watch me!" Emma yelled from the top of the slide. "I'm watching!" "Lena, you have to try this cake. It's so good." "I will, sweetheart." Lena, come see what Madison's mom brought. It's face paint glitter." And through it all, Adrian watched. Lena could feel his eyes on her, tracking her movements, but he kept his distance like they'd silently agreed this wasn't the time or place. Near the end of the party, while Emma was busy with presents, Lena slipped away to catch her breath. She found a bench away from the chaos, her chest tight with unshed tears. "Hey." She looked up to find Adrian standing there, hands in his pockets, looking as wrecked as she felt. "Hey." "Thank you for coming. Emma wouldn't have forgiven me if you weren't here." "I didn't come for you," Lena said, and watched him flinch. "I came for her." "I know." Adrian sat down, leaving space between them. "I'm sorry. For this week. For everything." "Are you?" "Because from here, it looks like you're doing exactly what you want, keeping your options open with Victoria while She stopped, swallowed hard. "While I wait around hoping you'll figure out if I'm worth the complication." "You are," Adrian said fiercely. "Lena, you're worth. Then prove it." She finally looked at him. "Stop hiding behind work and responsibility and fear. Make a choice, Adrian, please." Before he could respond, Emma came running over, face painted like a butterfly, dragging a present. "This one's for you," she told Lena. "I picked it out myself and Daddy said it was perfect." Lena opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a bracelet, simple silver with a small charm in the shape of a dragon. "Like from the picture I drew," Emma explained. "Because you're brave like a dragon slayer, that's what Daddy said." Lena's vision blurred. "Emma, I can't." "Please keep it. I want you to have it so you remember us even when you're busy doing important work stuff." "I could never forget you," Lena said, pulling Emma into a hug. "Never." Over Emma's shoulder, she met Adrian's eyes. He looked devastated, like he was watching something precious slip away and didn't know how to hold on. The party wound down. Parents collected sugar-high children. Emma crashed hard, falling asleep in Adrian's arms while he carried her to the car. "I'll see you Monday," Lena said, helping gather decorations. "Lena, wait. Can we—" "Not now, Adrian. I can't—" Her voice broke. "I just need some space to think." She left while he was still buckling Emma into her car seat, the dragon bracelet heavy on her wrist. That night, Lena lay in bed staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out what she wanted, what she could live with. Whether loving Adrian Cole was worth the constant uncertainty, the feeling of coming second to everything else in his life. Her phone buzzed. A text from Adrian. "I wrote you a letter, left it on your desk. Please read it before you make any decisions." Lena didn't respond. Monday morning, she found the envelope exactly where he said it would be. Her name written in Adrian's precise handwriting, the paper thick and expensive like everything in his world. She almost didn't open it, almost threw it away and saved herself whatever was inside. But in the end, she needed to know. The letter was 3 pages, handwritten, and it destroyed her. "Lena, I don't know how to do this. Write letters, admit feelings, be vulnerable with someone who could hurt me more than any business failure ever could. But you deserve honesty, so here it is. I'm terrified of what I feel for you, of how much Emma already loves you, of the way you've become necessary to my life in 3 months when I've spent years making sure nothing, no one, became necessary except my daughter. Victoria is easy. She knows my world, wants the same things, wouldn't require me to change or risk or feel more than I'm comfortable feeling. The merger proposal is real, and it's good for the company, but that's all it is. Business. What I feel for you isn't business, isn't easy, isn't anything I know how to handle. You make me want things I gave up on after Caroline died: partnership, trust, someone to come home to who sees past the CEO to the mess underneath. But I'm also aware of what I'm asking. For you to wait while I figure out how to balance everything. To be patient with a man who spent 4 years putting walls around his heart. To love a child who isn't yours but who already looks at you like you might stay. I canceled the Chicago trip because I was afraid. Of leaving Emma after her accident, yes. But also of the space between us giving you time to realize you deserve better than this. Than me. You do deserve better. Someone uncomplicated. Someone who doesn't come with a daughter and a corporation and baggage I'm still unpacking. But selfishly, I want to be the person you choose anyway. If you're done, if this is too much, too messy, too uncertain, I'll understand. I'll write you the best reference letter anyone's ever received, help you find a position elsewhere, anything you need. But you'll break something in me that I'm not sure I can fix again. Or if you're willing to try, if you can be patient while I learn how to let someone in again, I promise to do better, to make space, to choose you when it matters most. I'm not good at this, at feelings, at asking for what I want. But I want you, Lena, however we can make it work. Please don't give up on us yet. Adrian. Lena read it 3 times, tears streaming down her face, her chest so tight she could barely breathe. He was scared. She was scared. This whole thing was impossible and complicated and probably a terrible idea, but he was asking her to try. She found Adrian in his office, staring at his computer without really seeing it. He looked up when she entered, his expression carefully neutral, but she saw the fear underneath. I read your letter, Lena said. And? And it was the most emotionally articulate thing you've ever said to me, which is sad because you're usually terrible at this. His lips twitched. I'm terrible at this. You really are. Lena crossed the room, sat on the edge of his desk. But I'm not much better. I've spent 30 years being too scared to want anything big because wanting things usually meant losing them. And then you crashed into my life, literally. And suddenly I wanted everything, job security, nice clothes, to matter to someone. She met his eyes. To matter to you. You do matter, more than... Let me finish. She took a shaky breath. Victoria was right about one thing. You do choose work when you're scared. You hide behind meetings and mergers and responsibility because it's safer than risking your heart. And I can't be with someone who's going to run every time things get hard. Adrian's face fell. Lena, but I also know that loving someone, really loving them, means loving their fear too, their walls, their damage, all the ways they're still figuring out how to be human. She reached for his hand. So here's what I need. I need you to talk to me when you're scared instead of shutting me out. I need to know that even when work is crazy and Emma needs you and you're overwhelmed, there's still space for me somewhere in your life, even if it's small. It won't be small, Adrian said roughly, pulling her closer. Lena, I promise. Don't promise perfect. I don't want perfect. I just want honest. Honest I can do. He cupped her face, his thumb brushing away her tears. I'm scared of losing you. I'm scared of failing Emma by bringing someone into her life who might leave. I'm scared I'm too broken to be what you need. But I'm more scared of waking up in 5 years and realizing I let you go because I was too much of a coward to try. Lena kissed him, and it felt like coming home after being lost for too long. We're going to mess this up, she murmured against his lips. So many times. Probably. And it's going to be complicated. Definitely. But we're doing it anyway? Yeah, Adrian said, we're doing it anyway. They spent the rest of Monday figuring out logistics, HR policies about workplace relationships, how to tell Emma without making promises they might not keep, what this meant for Lena's position at the company. I won't be your assistant anymore, Lena said. Not if we're... whatever we are. It's too complicated. Agreed. Henderson offered you the development position. Take it. You earned it. Just like that? You think I'm going to let talent like yours waste away filing my contracts? Adrian smiled. Besides, having you 3 floors down will make sneaking away for lunch much more interesting. The transition took 2 weeks. Lena moved to the development department, got her own office, started managing the company's charitable initiatives with a team of people who actually respected her ideas. And slowly, carefully, she and Adrian built something that looked almost like a relationship. Dinner with Emma twice a week. Weekend mornings helping with homework while Adrian made pancakes. Company events where they arrived separately but left together. Stolen moments in supply closets and late-night phone calls and the slow, terrifying process of letting someone see you completely. You make Daddy smile more, Emma said one evening, watching Adrian and Lena try to assemble a bookshelf that absolutely did not require this many pieces. That's because Lena's funny, Adrian said, holding up 2 identical-looking parts. Are these the same? They're labeled C and D, so probably not. The labels are lies. Everything is lies. Emma giggled. Daddy's bad at building stuff. Mommy used to do it. The casual mention of Caroline, rare, but getting easier, didn't hurt the way it used to. Lena had learned that loving Adrian meant making space for his grief, for the family he'd lost, for the fact that she'd never be Emma's mother, but maybe could be something else. Something her own. Well, lucky for both of you, I'm excellent at building stuff, Lena said, taking the instructions from Adrian. Why don't you supervise from the couch? 3 hours later, they had a functional bookshelf, and Emma asleep between them on the couch, the ending credits of her favorite movie playing. We should get her to bed, Adrian said quietly. 5 more minutes. They sat in comfortable silence, Emma's soft breathing between them, and Lena felt something settle in her chest. Not perfect, not without complications, but real, and hers. I love you, Adrian said suddenly. I should have said it sooner, but I was scared. I know. Lena looked at him over Emma's sleeping form. I love you too, even though you're terrible at building furniture. I have other skills. Debatable. He laughed, quiet and genuine, and Lena memorized the sound. This was what she'd been running toward that morning 3 months ago. Not the job or the salary or the nice clothes. This feeling of belonging somewhere, of mattering to people who mattered back. The skirt had been ruined, but everything that came after, the chaos and uncertainty and fear, had been worth it. Even if she didn't know yet that the biggest test was still coming, that Adrian's job would soon require a decision that could take him halfway around the world, that Lena would have to choose between the life she'd built and the risk of building something new. But for now, on this November evening, with the man she loved and the child who'd stolen her heart, Lena let herself believe that everything would work out. Sometimes faith was all you had, and sometimes it was enough. The call came on a Tuesday in January, 3 months after Lena had moved to development, 2 months after she and Adrian had stopped pretending what they had was casual. Lena was in her office reviewing grant applications when Adrian appeared in her doorway, his expression unreadable. We need to talk. Her stomach dropped. Nothing good ever started with those words. Okay. He closed the door, sat across from her desk instead of beside her, and Lena knew. Whatever he was about to say would change everything. The board offered me a position, Adrian said carefully, International Expansion Director, based in London. It's a 3-year commitment, maybe longer. The world tilted. London. They want someone to oversee the European operations, build new partnerships, establish coal industries as a global leader. His hands were clasped tightly, knuckles white. It's the kind of opportunity that could... When do they need an answer? 2 weeks. Lena nodded, trying to process. London. 3 years, an ocean between them. And Emma, she managed, would come with me. There are excellent schools there, and... Adrian stopped, rubbed his face. I haven't said yes. I wanted to talk to you first. Why? It's your career, your decision. Because you're part of my life now. His voice was rough. What I decide affects you. I can't just... Yes, you can. Lena stood, needing to move. Adrian, this is huge. This is your future. Our future, he corrected, if you want it to be. She turned to look at him. What are you asking? I'm asking if you'd consider coming with us. There are positions in the London office, or you could... He seemed to struggle with the words. Or you could take time to figure out what you want. Travel, write, whatever. I'd support you. You'd support me. Lena laughed, a bitter sound. With your money, while I follow you across the world and give up everything I've built here. That's not what I meant. Isn't it? She crossed her arms, defensive. I finally have a job I'm good at, a team that respects me, independence I've never had before. And you're asking me to give it all up to be what? Your girlfriend who moved to London because you got a promotion? Adrian flinched. I'm asking you to build a life with me. That's not the same thing. Isn't it? Lena's voice cracked. You're going either way, Adrian, with or without me. This job is too important to pass up, and we both know it. I haven't decided, but you will, because that's who you are. You choose the company when it matters most. She threw his own words back at him, the ones Victoria had said months ago. And I'll be the one left trying to fit into whatever space is left over. That's not fair. None of this is fair. The anger felt good, easier than the fear underneath. I spent 30 years barely surviving, Adrian, scraping by, hoping for something better, and I finally have something that's mine. My job, my apartment, my life, and you're asking me to pack it all up for a maybe. It's not a maybe. Adrian stood, his own frustration breaking through. I love you. I want a future with you. That's not maybe. That's... For how long? The question stopped him cold. How long before the next opportunity comes up? The next promotion that requires us to uproot everything again? How long before I'm just the woman who follows you around, giving up pieces of myself until there's nothing left? I would never ask you to. You already are. Lena's vision blurred. Maybe not intentionally, but asking me to choose between you and everything I've worked for, that's exactly what you're doing. The silence between them was crushing. I need time, Lena said finally, to think. How much time? I don't know. As much as you're giving the board, I guess. Adrian's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Okay, take the time you need. He left, and Lena collapsed into her chair, her chest so tight she could barely breathe. The next 2 weeks were torture. Adrian was professional at work, distant everywhere else. No dinners with Emma, no stolen moments in empty conference rooms, no texts about nothing important. Lena threw herself into her job, trying not to think about what she'd lose either way. Choose Adrian and give up her independence. Choose herself and lose the man she loved and the child who'd become family. You look terrible, her coworker Rachel said on Thursday, finding Lena still at her desk at 8 p.m. What's going on? Nothing, just busy. Lena, I've known you for 3 months. You stress organize when you're upset, and your files have never been this alphabetized. Rachel sat on the edge of the desk. Does this have to do with Adrian Cole? How did you... Everyone knows. You two aren't as subtle as you think. Rachel's expression was kind. What happened? So Lena told her about London, the impossible choice, the fear of losing herself. Can I be honest? Rachel said when she'd finished. Please. You're not really afraid of losing yourself. You're afraid of wanting something this much. Rachel tilted her head. You've spent your whole life expecting the worst, waiting for things to fall apart. And now you have something real, something good, and it terrifies you that it might not last. That's not, isn't it? You told me once that you kept taking terrible jobs because at least you knew what to expect. At least disappointment was familiar. Rachel squeezed her hand. Maybe it's time to stop choosing safety and start choosing happiness, even if it's scary. That night, Lena lay in bed turning Rachel's words over. Was she running again, choosing familiar struggle over uncertain joy? Her phone buzzed. Emma, Daddy says you're busy with work. Are you mad at us? Lena's heart cracked. Not mad, sweetheart. Just figuring some stuff out. When you figure it out, can you come over? I miss you. I miss you too. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Daddy misses you too. He won't say it, but he looks sad all the time. Like when Mommy first went to heaven. Lena read the message 3 times, tears streaming down her face. The next morning, she woke to voices outside her apartment. Loud voices, angry voices. She looked out the window and saw Adrian on the sidewalk below, arguing with, was that her landlord? Lena pulled on clothes and ran downstairs. Completely inappropriate, her landlord was saying, red-faced. You can't just show up here making demands. Adrian? Lena interrupted. What's going on? He turned and she saw the desperation in his eyes. Tell me what you need. What? To stay. To choose this. Us. Adrian gestured around wildly. A better apartment? I'll buy you one. A guaranteed position at Cole Industries? Done. Security, stability, proof that I won't let you down. Tell me what you need and I'll make it happen. Mr. Cole was trying to buy your building, the landlord interjected, still furious. Said something about fixing the heat and upgrading the units. I wasn't trying to buy it, I was offering to invest. Adrian stopped, turned back to Lena. I'm making this worse, aren't I? Yes, Lena said, but she was almost smiling through her tears. You're making it so much worse. I don't know what I'm doing. He ran both hands through his hair, looking lost. I've spent 2 weeks trying to logic my way through this. Made spreadsheets, calculated pros and cons, called my therapist 3 times, and the only thing I know for sure is that I can't lose you. So you decided to buy my building? I was trying to fix things. I always try to fix things. His voice broke. But I can't fix this, can I? I can't make you choose me. I can't promise it'll be easy or that you won't have to sacrifice things. All I can do is stand here and tell you that I love you, Emma loves you, and I'll spend the rest of my life trying to build a life where you don't have to give up who you are to be with us. The landlord cleared his throat. Should I leave? Lena and Adrian said together. When they were alone on the sidewalk, Lena finally spoke. I'm scared. Me too. What if I move to London and hate it? What if I can't find work that matters? What if I end up resenting you? What if you love it? Adrian countered. What if you find something even better than what you have here? What if we build something amazing together? You can't promise that. No. But I can promise to try. To make space for your dreams, not just mine. To build a partnership, not a dependence. He stepped closer. I turned down the London position. Lena's heart stopped. What? I called the board this morning, told them I needed to be here, that Emma's settled, that I have... He stopped. That I have a life here worth staying for. Adrian, you can't... That's your career, and you're my life. His hands cupped her face. I've been thinking about this backwards, asking you to sacrifice for me when I should be asking what we both need to be happy. And maybe the answer isn't London or here. Maybe it's something we build together. But the job, there will be other jobs, other opportunities. Adrian's thumb brushed away her tears. But there's only one you, and I'm done letting my fear of feeling too much cost me the things that matter most. Lena kissed him, pouring everything she couldn't say into it. Love, fear, hope. The terrifying possibility that maybe this time things could work. When they broke apart, she was laughing and crying at the same time. You're an idiot, she said. Established fact. And you can't just buy buildings when you're upset. I'm learning that. But I love you anyway. Adrian's expression softened. Yeah? Yeah. Lena took a shaky breath. And I'll go to London. If you want it, we'll figure it out together. You don't have to... I know. But Rachel was right. I've been so busy protecting myself from disappointment that I almost missed something real. She met his eyes. I don't want to miss this, even if it's scary. What about your job? Henderson offered me a position in the London office last week, Director of European Charitable Initiatives. Lena smiled at his shocked expression. I didn't tell you because I was trying to decide if I was brave enough to take it. And now? Now I think maybe being brave isn't about not being scared. It's about doing it anyway. Adrian kissed her again, and this time it felt like a promise. The announcement came 2 weeks later. Adrian Cole would be heading international expansion from London. His partner in both business and life, Lena Brooks, would be directing charitable operations. The office gossip was immediate and vicious. Lena had slept her way into a promotion. She was using Adrian. He was having a midlife crisis. Ignore them, Rachel advised. People always talk. But ignoring was harder than Lena expected, especially when Victoria Hale showed up at her office on Lena's last day. Congratulations, Victoria said, and she almost sounded genuine. London is beautiful this time of year. Thank you. Can I give you some advice, woman to woman? Lena braced herself. Sure. Don't lose yourself trying to be what he needs. Adrian is good at consuming everything around him. It's what makes him successful. But you have to hold on to who you are, or you'll wake up one day and not recognize yourself. Victoria's expression was complicated. That's why we didn't work. I became who he needed instead of staying who I was. I won't, Lena said quietly. Make that mistake. Good. Victoria smiled, sad and knowing. He's lucky to have you. Try to remember that when things get hard. Moving to London was chaos. Finding an apartment large enough for all three of them, but close to Emma's new school. Helping Emma say goodbye to friends while promising they'd visit. Packing up Lena's tiny studio, which somehow felt harder than leaving her job. This is where I became someone I liked, Lena told Adrian, standing in the empty apartment on their last night in the city. You were always someone worth liking. This is just where you started believing it. The London office was bigger, shinier, more intimidating than Lena had imagined. Her first day, she walked into a conference room full of people who'd been doing this job for decades and tried not to feel like a fraud. Ms. Brooks, we've reviewed your proposal for expanding our education initiatives, the director said, his British accent making even criticism sound polite. It's quite ambitious. Too ambitious? Lena asked. No. Brilliant, actually. If you can pull it off. So, she pulled it off. Worked 60-hour weeks those first 2 months, proving she'd earned her position through skill, not connections. Built partnerships with local organizations. Launched programs that actually helped people instead of just looking good on paper. And slowly, London started to feel less like exile and more like home. Emma adapted faster than either adult. Made friends with her gap-toothed smile and complete lack of self-consciousness. Started speaking with a slight British accent that made Adrian laugh and Lena's chest ache with affection. I like it here, Emma announced one evening at dinner. But I miss our old apartment sometimes, and the park where I had my birthday. Me too, Lena admitted. But we have new parks here, Emma continued, ever practical. And Lena lives with us now, which is better. Adrian met Lena's eyes across the table, and something warm passed between them. Much better, he agreed. 6 months in, they hit their first real crisis. Emma got sick, really sick, with pneumonia that landed her in the hospital for a week. Adrian barely left her side, running the company from a chair beside her bed, looking more exhausted than Lena had ever seen him. Go home, Lena told him on day 5. Shower, sleep. I'll stay with her. I can't. Yes, you can. She's sleeping anyway, and you're no good to her if you collapse. Lena took his hand. Trust me, I've got her. He left, reluctant, and Lena sat in the quiet hospital room watching Emma sleep. So small in the hospital bed, her dark curls spread on the pillow, one hand clutching the stuffed rabbit she still slept with. You're going to be okay, Lena whispered, even though Emma couldn't hear. I promise. Emma's eyes fluttered open. Lena? I'm here, sweetheart. Are you going to leave when I get better? Emma's voice was small, scared. Like Mommy did? Lena's heart shattered. Oh, baby. No, I'm not going anywhere. Promise? I promise. Lena climbed into the narrow bed beside Emma, careful of all the wires and tubes. I'm staying right here. Forever? It was too big a promise to make. Too many things could go wrong. Too many ways this could fall apart. But looking at this child who'd somehow become hers, Lena said, forever. Emma fell back asleep in her arms, and Lena stayed there until Adrian returned hours later, finding them curled together in the hospital bed. She was scared, Lena explained quietly. So was I. Adrian sat on the edge of the bed, his hand covering both of theirs. Still am. Me too, but we're doing it anyway. Emma recovered. Life returned to its new normal. Work and school and dinners together and the slow, steady building of something that looked like family. 9 months into London, the board approached Adrian about extending his contract. Instead of 3 years, they wanted 5. Maybe permanently. What do you think? He asked Lena that night. I think it's your decision. It's our decision. That was the deal. Lena thought about it. About the life they'd built here, the work she loved, the way Emma had blossomed. About the fear she'd had 9 months ago that she'd lose herself, and how instead she'd found parts of herself she hadn't known existed. I think we should stay, she said finally. If you want to. I want whatever makes you happy. Then stay. Build your empire. I'll build mine, and we'll figure out the rest together. Adrian pulled her close. How did I get so lucky? You hit me with your bike and ruined my skirt. That's not luck. That's chaos. Best chaos of my life. The proposal came on a random Tuesday in March, 1 year after they'd moved to London. Lena was in her office when Adrian appeared in the doorway, looking nervous in a way she'd never seen. Can you come with me? He asked. There's something I need to show you. He drove them across the city to a park Lena didn't recognize, led her down a path to a small clearing where there was a rack of skirts. Dozens of them, hanging from a makeshift clothing line. Every color, every style, fluttering in the spring breeze. Adrian, what? The day we met, I ruined your skirt, he said, taking her hand, tore it right down the seam in front of everyone, and you were so angry, so fierce, so completely yourself, even when you had every reason to fall apart. He turned to face her. I've been thinking about that moment a lot lately. how it was the worst moment of your day and somehow the best moment of mine, because it brought you into my life. You're being very dramatic about a torn skirt. I'm being dramatic about the woman who wore it. The woman who told me off on the street, who called me out when I was being an idiot, who loved my daughter when she didn't have to. Adrian's voice shook. Who chose to build a life with me even when it meant risking everything she'd worked for? He pulled a small box from his pocket, and Lena's heart stopped. I'm not good at this. At the romantic gestures. At saying what I feel without hiding behind logic and spreadsheets. But you make me want to try. He opened the box, revealing a simple ring, elegant, understated, perfect. Marry me, Lena. Not because it's logical or makes sense, just because I love you and want to spend the rest of my life proving it. Lena looked at the ring, at the ridiculous display of skirts, at the man she'd loved through every complication and crisis. You bought me skirts. Dozens of them, in case I mess up again. You will mess up again. I know, but I'll try not to. And when I do, you'll tell me, and we'll figure it out together. Adrian was fully vulnerable now. No walls, no CEO mask. Say yes, please. On one condition. Anything. We get rid of all these skirts. They're ridiculous, and I hate every single one. Adrian laughed, relief flooding his face. Deal. Then yes, I'll marry you, even though you're terrible at romantic gestures and bought me the world's most embarrassing engagement present. He kissed her there in the clearing, surrounded by fluttering fabric and spring sunshine, and it felt like the ending of one story and the beginning of something bigger. The wedding was small. Just Emma, a few close friends, the people who'd watched them stumble their way into something real. Emma wore a purple dress and insisted on being the flower girl and the ring bearer because why choose? Do you, Adrian Cole, take Lena Brooks? I do, Adrian interrupted. Sorry, yes, absolutely, I do. The officiant smiled. I haven't finished the question yet. Doesn't matter. The answer is still yes. Lena laughed through happy tears, and Emma cheered, and when they were finally pronounced married, the kiss was sweet and perfect and tasted like the future. 2 years later, Lena stood in a conference room in Geneva, presenting Cole Industries' new global education initiative to a room full of international donors. Her team had worked for months on this, building partnerships across 12 countries, creating opportunities for kids who needed them most. We're not just writing checks, Lena told the room. We're building systems, creating sustainable change, giving children the tools they need to build their own futures. The presentation ended to enthusiastic applause and promises of funding that would change thousands of lives. Afterward, Adrian found her in the hallway. You were incredible in there. We were incredible. This was a team effort. Still, my wife, the humanitarian. He kissed her forehead. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of us. Lena leaned into him. For figuring out how to do this. The marriage, the careers, the life we built. It's not what I expected. Better or worse? Better. So much better than anything I could have planned. That evening, they video called Emma, who was spending the week with Adrian's parents while they traveled for work. Guess what? Emma announced, gap-toothed smile even wider now at age 8. I got an A on my maths test and Mrs. Patterson said I'm brilliant. Of course you are, Lena said. You're the smartest kid I know. That's because you and Daddy are smart, so I got your smart genes. Emma peered at the screen. When are you coming home? I miss you. 2 more days, Adrian promised, and then we're all yours for a whole week. Good, because I need help with my science project and Grandma doesn't understand photosynthesis. After they hung up, Lena sat on the hotel bed thinking about how far they'd all come. Adrian, learning to balance ambition with presence. Emma, growing up brave and kind. And Lena herself, no longer the woman running through streets in a torn skirt, terrified of being late, of losing everything. What are you thinking about? Adrian asked, joining her on the bed. Just that I'm happy. Is that weird? After everything we've been through? Not weird, maybe miraculous. I don't believe in miracles. Neither did I. Then you yelled at me on a sidewalk and changed my entire life. Lena turned to look at him. This man who'd been a stranger, then her boss, then the person who knew her better than anyone. You know what the hardest part was? Not falling in love with you, not even choosing to move to London. It was learning to trust that I deserve this. The happiness, the success. You. You deserve all of it and more. I'm starting to believe that, she smiled. Only took 33 years. Better late than never. They sat in comfortable silence, two people who'd found each other through chaos and built something steady, despite every reason it shouldn't work. I have a confession, Adrian said eventually. Should I be worried? I kept the skirt, the one I tore that first day. Lena stared at him. You what? It was in your desk when you moved apartments. I found it, and he looked sheepish. I kept it, as a reminder of how we started. That's either really sweet or really creepy. I haven't decided which. Probably both. Adrian pulled her close. But it's true. Every time I look at it, I remember how close I came to losing you before I even knew I needed you. How you could have stayed angry, could have transferred offices, could have chosen the safe, easy path. He kissed her temple. Instead, you chose chaos. Chose us. Best decision I never deserved. We deserved each other, Lena corrected. Two disasters who somehow made sense together. I'll take it. Years later, when people asked how they met, Lena and Adrian would tell the story with practiced ease. The bike, the torn skirt, the public humiliation that somehow led to everything good. It was the worst morning of my life, Lena would say. And the beginning of mine, Adrian would add. Emma, now a teenager with her mother's determination and her father's strategic mind, would roll her eyes. You two are so dramatic about a piece of fabric. But secretly, she loved the story. Loved that her family started with chaos and built something beautiful anyway. That love could grow in unlikely places between imperfect people just trying their best. Because that's what they were. Imperfect, messy, still figuring it out. Adrian still worked too much sometimes, got lost in spreadsheets and forgot to eat. Lena still had moments of fear that everything would disappear, that she'd wake up back in that tiny apartment barely making rent. But they'd learned to talk through it, to choose each other even when it was hard, to build a life that had room for both independence and partnership. The torn skirt hung in their closet in London, framed like art, a reminder of beginnings, of chances taken, of the moment chaos collided with fate and created something neither of them could have planned. Sometimes the best things in life started with disaster. Sometimes you had to lose your skirt, your dignity, your carefully controlled existence to find what you didn't know you needed. And sometimes, the stranger who ruined your morning turned out to be the person who'd spend the rest of their life making every morning better. It wasn't a fairy tale. Fairy tales were too neat, too perfect, too simple. This was real life, complicated and messy and full of moments when they almost got it wrong. But it was theirs, built from torn fabric and torn pride and the courage to keep trying even when scared. And in the end, that was more valuable than any perfect story. Because perfection was boring, safe, unchallenged. Real love, the kind that lasted, was choosing each other through the imperfect moments, through fear and mistakes and the days when nothing went right. It was Adrian on his bike, running late, not paying attention, accidentally changing both their lives. It was Lena, angry and humiliated, deciding to stay anyway. It was Emma, asking if Lena would be her family when biology said no, but love said yes. It was every choice they made after that first chaotic morning to keep choosing each other. Some stories started with love at first sight. Theirs started with a ruined skirt and mutual frustration. And somehow, improbably, impossibly, that was perfect.